Greetings, and today I'm back with another deck video for you guys. So this deck is a variation of the Deathwish monsters. This deck is featured a lot, but like this is on Team aretuza's meta snapshot. I did quite a few of their decks before. This one is not exactly like, it's not the same as the one that they have on their tier list. This is sort of a spin-off I made on my own with a couple of things considered. So this is to the face of Death Shadow deck. So I'm just going to go through the deck here with you guys. And I'm actually recording this video at the same time as I'm going to record another video after this, which will be posted like at a later, probably sometime next week. But I just want to try something a little bit different for this channel. I don't want to like make it sound like I'm going away from Gwent, because I know like a lot of you guys that are subscribed to, well, most of you guys that are subscribed to me are there because of Gwent. And Gwent videos are still coming, don't get me wrong. It's just that it's just hard to do, let's say, like 5 days a week just all Gwent videos, especially if like the decks are pretty much the same. Not to mention there are a lot of other great YouTubers out there that do the exact same kind of videos. So you know, it's great that you guys are supporting me with, you know, leaving your likes, just watching my videos, commenting for some of you, which is great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And please continue to do so. I really do like hearing your guys' opinions, and you know, getting to talk to you guys and getting to sort of communicate to people who are sort of into the same interests as I am. So anyway, that's kind of the spiel, and this is the deck showcase, the deck guide video. So I wanted to make this deck a little bit more, I don't want to say engine heavy, but like I do want to implement engines just a little bit more here. So you can see that I have Geels, which kind of like, you know, is sort of the main engine when it comes to Deathwish. So starting off Royal Decree, pretty straightforward, getting anything you want out of the deck, probably even your engines if you'd like your Deathwish engines, and Geels himself if he doesn't come out. Eaghern is here for sort of that big short round unit that you'll probably need if you're finding yourself in the short round against your opponent. I find that Deathwish actually does decently well in the short round. Obviously, if you implement cards like Eaghern, like all these tall cards that are meant to do well in the short round, if you ever find yourselves in that. Geels is, as I already mentioned, the main Deathwish engine, so you'll want to protect him with the Cave Troll at all costs. Yeah, because Geels is just going to be a pretty good sort of enabler for your Deathwish cards. Even if he does manage to get destroyed, it's okay. You do have your Deathwish power, Death Shadow power, hero power, so that's not such a bad trade-off. But like being able to keep Geels alive is actually going to prove to be very useful. So if you can, you know, manage to protect him with your Cave Troll, then you can kind of just go rampage with your Deathwish units. Obviously not with cards like obviously Dettlaff, stuff like that, or you wouldn't want to do it with Goliath, or maybe you could actually play a little bit of mind games with your opponent. So yeah, so Geels is there as sort of the main Deathwish engine. Dettlaff is there as sort of I wouldn't say a nuisance, but he does come back twice during the game. I thought about putting in Ruhin instead of Dettlaff, but obviously because of the provision restriction, I had to put Dettlaff instead of Ruhin, even though I think Ruhin might have been just a little bit useful here because A, it's not limited when it comes to its ability to resurrect from the graveyard. Yeah, so, and well, I'd say that they can both get disrupted, like they can both get locked, they can both get destroyed. Which kind of wastes a charge on Dettlaff's ability to be resummoned, whilst Ruhin, it'll just come back. So yeah. Next, of course, is the Defender Cave Troll. Cave Troll is actually a pretty big card here if you want to protect your engines, because monster engines tend to get very easily targeted. Like if you compare it to other cards or to other factions, like let's say Northern Realms, where they have a crap ton of engines, so they're already kind of a nuisance as it is. But at the same time, they're sort of deploy, and their other mechanics aren't as strong as their engines. Like Northern Realms is very engine heavy. This Monsters faction is very big on the Thrives, the Death Wishes, yeah, so, and the Consumes, of course. So Geels is pretty much the only strong Deathwish engine, and you have to protect him. That's the thing with monsters, is they're very limited on their engine count. on their engine units, so they really gotta be well protected. Even if they don't, it's still okay. You do have a lot of backup plans, but like, you know, you want to keep Jills as protected as possible. So that's what the Cave Troll is meant to be there for. By the way, I did do a ranked. I did rank all the defenders in Gwent in sort of my least favorite to my most favorite based on what I think is their usage, power levels, etc. So if you want to go check that out, I'll definitely leave a card probably here, or probably at the end of, if you guys do make it to the end of the video, I'll leave it at the end screen for you guys. Next is Meruna. Meruna is a very popular target for Death Shadow hero power because of her ability to steal an opponent unit with 4 or less power. You can steal engines from your opponents that could disrupt them. You know, you could steal defender. You could steal Merluzo, the defender from scoia'tael. Just an example of a defender you can take. So Meruna is good there for sort of disrupting your opponent's side of the field, which is not really featured in monsters. So, you know, this is a very valuable card for that. Osriel is there once again for that short round. You know, you wanting to eat up your Goliath, your Eghern, possibly the Cave Troll. Although you want to avoid that, you want to eat your pretty much your high units that you have available. But it's good there for the short round, in case you want to play Eghern or Goliath in the second round, in case you're trying to commit. So that's essentially what Osriel is there for, sort of a backup extra card for the short round. Next is Whispering Hillock, and I think Whispering Hillock actually does pretty well in consume units. I'm surprised I don't see this card played a bit more in the Deathwish decks that I've played against. It's actually really, I find it to be quite valuable when it comes to resummoning your units, not to mention triggering their Deathwish abilities in the process. So if you Whispering Hillock, let's say for example a Harpy Egg, you get to summon a Harpy, you get to bring back the Harpy Egg, and if you use Death Shadow, you get to do it again. So essentially with one card plus the hero power, you've just made 18, well, that's only 13 points. That's not as hype as I would say it is, but you guys kind of get what I'm saying, right? Like Whispering Hillock is a pretty strong card for Deathwish. Deathwish units. So like for example, Meruna of course is a pretty strong example. Harpy Egg, like I said, also another good example. Foglet's not a bad example actually either, but like again, it's a gold card, you wouldn't really want to use it on that, I would say. Ancient Foglet's not too bad, so you know, you have options for Whispering Hillock just because of its capabilities. I think the reason why I don't see much use for it is maybe because the Deathwish abilities of some of these cards aren't exactly that strong or that worth to put an 8 cost gold card into the deck. That's probably why, but you know, I thought I'd play around with it to see what happens. Next we got Goliath, and this is a card that people tend to protect, of course, because you do not want this thing's Deathwish to be happening, but at the same time it might not be so bad, because if you were to play Whispering Hillock on this card, not only do you get this card back, yes, your opponent does have to summon the highest unit from their deck, which is the highest power, not the highest provision. So if you're playing a Nilfgaard deck, chances are you're going to get out Tibber. If you're playing another monsters deck, chances are you're probably going to get out Eghern, but the good news of that is that Eghern's deploy ability doesn't get played, so it actually gets destroyed. So that's something you might want to keep an eye on as well, is if you know what deck your opponent is playing, then actually having Goliath's Deathwish ability isn't so bad to play, because if their highest unit, like based on, like if they're playing like a deck list that you already know, then you already know what to expect when Goliath dies. So it's kind of like, of course, it's constructed, like it's not like the World Championships or the Gwent Open Challenges, so the decks aren't as predictable as they are in the latter, but like at this point you've kind of already faced enough decks to see A, multiples of certain decks, and B, kind of already know what the capabilities are of the deck. So you know, Goliath might actually prove to be a pretty useful card, not to mention it's 10 power, so a good Osriel target for that short round in the third round, if that's what you need it for. And yeah, next you have Chiron. You always gotta have a Chiron. You gotta have an Eater for those units in case all of your other consumes / destroyers cards get this nullified. So Chiron's always good to have to keep around in case your Deathwish units, you have any stray Deathwish units that you have to eat up. So next is Caranthir. Caranthir I find is a pretty decent card for if you want to summon another Geals to get greedy. Summoning another Geals with Caranthir is actually very ambitious, because A, Geals would only come out as a 1 power unit, which is going to get easily destroyed unless you have your cave troll set up already and ready to go. But you can also use it to, let's say, like play other Deathwish cards to come out. Like if you want to play a second Imperial Manticore and then use Death Shadow on that, and absolutely destroy your opponent's unit. Not to mention you have another Imperial Manticore in your hand waiting to go. So it just adds an extra layer of fear to your opponent. And they have no choice but to be prepared for it, just because of how powerful these cards can be. So Caranthir is actually good for creating extra Deathwish units, extra engines, an extra defender, but it's like, why would you want to do that? You could combo Caranthir with Whispering Hillock to restore its power, perhaps. That's not such a bad idea either. I find that Caranthir and Whispering Hillock can go well together in a Deathwish type of deck. So there's Caranthir. Imperial Manticore again is good for sort of getting cards off of your opponent's side of the field, good for that disruption. You'll notice that quite a few engine cards are pretty low powered, so you can probably destroy an engine with Imperial Manticore. Obviously you want to avoid this thing killing one power unit, because that's absolutely too weak for this card's value. You want to try and have them as high as possible, of course, to be destroyed. Usually I would see this card being played, well, personally, the way I would play it, is to probably play it on a 3rd round, and that's a little bit surprising to some of you maybe because of how low power it is in the 3rd round. But having its ability like that, especially if your opponent went first, well, it doesn't matter, your opponent goes first or second, you destroy the lowest enemy. So you play Imperial Manticore, combine it with Death Shadow, and possibly have Chiron or a Whispering Hillock to destroy more of your opponents. Honestly, like, that's happened to me before, and it's just made me nothing but angry. So yeah, Imperial Manticore is actually pretty powerful. Next we got the Slizzard. This is a card I'm thinking of maybe only having 1 unit of, and the reason for that is because I have Whispering Hillock and Chiron. It's like I might have and I have 2 Endrigo Warriors down there as well. So I might be overdoing the Slizzards here a little bit. Excuse me. But you know, it's not so bad having an extra sort of consume unit, because again, you don't expect these cards to stay on the field forever. So at some point, Slizzard's probably gonna get taken off. If not with an AT, it probably could get locked, could get banished. You know, you kind of get what I'm talking about. Some opponents like to sort of keep Slizzard alive and have him do its thing and just absolutely ruin your life with like a Geralt Axii, for example. Sometimes they do that. They let you do that. But you know, I have Cave Troll to sort of protect it. And you don't want to get greedy with the Slizzard, of course, because you don't want that happening to you. Reset is actually becoming quite the kind of the bane of the existence for monsters, especially with what they're known for, which is consume, thrive. Those are sort of the biggest things. I know this is Deathwish, but like Slizzard's a consume unit, so you guys kind of get where I'm getting at. Next is the Bridge Troll. This is what I'm going to consider changing a Slizzard for a Bridge Troll, simply because you want to add that extra Deathwish unit, and this card does get to boost the highest allied unit by 4, which is still decently powerful. So it's essentially an 8 for 5. Well, not quite. It's a 4 for 5. But, you know, if the Bridge Troll's base power gets transferred to a unit that consumes it, or it gets come back, then, you know, it's essentially an 8 for 5. So, yeah, the change I might make here is 1 Slizzard taken off and add an extra Bridge Troll, or possibly another Endrigo Eggs just for that control. But yeah, Bridge Troll is there. It is a pretty decent card as well. Next is the Harpy Egg, which I find is sort of the main bronze Deathwish card for this deck. This card is probably because of the capabilities of summoning a Harpy. This card, I've always seen this card to be a target of Death Shadow on round 1. Obviously targets for the consume units like Slizzards, Chirons, etc. To summon Harpies. So it's sort of good for that tempo in round 1. That's obviously why they do it. I've been out tempoed by Deathwish monsters quite a few times actually, considering the fact that this deck, I mean, I don't think it's meant to be that high tempo, just because you have to play the Deathwish. Like this hero power Death Shadow is literally meant to up the tempo on the Deathwish cards, because you have to play them first, so you kind of waste around just placing them onto the field, and then it's not till later on that you actually get to do stuff with them. Like if this hero power didn't exist, this deck probably would be in the bottom of the list, if not non-existent. Just, I don't know, just because of how slow Deathwish cards tend to be. And you know, back when removal cards used to be much more common and much more prominent among the ranks of the units, Deathwish obviously had a hard time. But again, sort of the good news is that's kind of the irony of it, because Deathwish does do best when it's destroyed. So that's kind of the irony of it. Anyway, next is the Endrega Larva, which is the bronze engine for this deck. It's the Thrive unit, of course, so this is sort of where you're gonna get your consume value to. Your consume value is gonna go with Endrega Larva. All your pretty strong units are gonna come out, boost up Endrega Larva's power. So it's good to have Endrega Larva, at least one Endrega Larva around per long committed round that you choose to do, just so you get that extra power. Of course, this is your only Thrive unit in the deck, so this also has to be well protected. Even though your Deathwish and Consume units already do well on their own, that Thrive just adds an extra little bit of spice into the deck to make it work pretty well. Next is the Endrega Warrior. This does 2 consumes for the price of 1, which is great. Not to mention, if you consume insectoids, you can summon the spider. You're probably not gonna use it too often to summon to spawn insectoids, and that's okay because it's not meant to be a control insectoid deck. It's mostly there for the consumes, of course. So, you know, like I said, if you have any extra Deathwish units that you need to get rid of, go ahead and play the Endrega Warrior. If you just so happen to have Endrega Eggs, go ahead, even better, because you do get those 3 spiders out of that, not to mention the 4 from the Endrega Warrior, from the Endrega Eggs themselves. So that's a pretty powerful combo, Warrior plus Eggs, and not to mention the 3 drones. But, you know, if that's not the case, then there's other Deathwish units for you to eat as well, so there is that. And speaking of the Endrega Eggs, I only have 1 unit of them now. They do make adjustments. I might add an extra one. And the reason for this is because I find these to be kind of slow on their own. So obviously you want to sort of mitigate the speed, the low speed of this deck as much as possible. So that's kind of why I'm limiting the amount of these kinds of cards. But at the same time, you can kind of also say the same for any card, but at least those cards are pretty powerful. I mean, this one too, but I'm sort of pointing more at that Ancient Foglet down there. But Ancient Foglet too is not so bad. And another combo I've seen actually is that whenever this card gets summoned, I see it get purified. So it's like, let's say you play Ancient Foglet, you use its Deathwish ability, and let's say you play like a Peller on the Ancient Foglet and sort of purify it. So that means if it dies, it actually comes back yet again. So that's actually not a bad thing to do, but again, it's like really no point in doing that, just because I feel like you just have a lot of other cards that you want to play. So, and Foglet's just there because A, it's a Deathwish unit, and B, it's deck thin, and you guys know I love deck thin. That's just what it is with me, in my playstyle and deck. So this is sort of my version of the Deathwish Monsters deck. I will be doing a gameplay video of it, and I will be also recording a new series to the channel. Unfortunately, this one is not Gwent related, so that might upset some of you guys, but it is something close related to it. So, you know, do look forward to that if you guys did make it to the end of this video. And plus, if you did, thank you so much for listening to my ramble. I know I sound pretty boring sometimes. Don't forget, of course, to leave a like if you guys enjoyed this video, and subscribe for more content. And other than that, this is Enzo signing out. I'll catch you guys in the next one.